My parents bought this property before I was born, and so living here and growing up here, I spent a lot of time exploring the land and being part of it. I remember coming down to Chimacum Creek as a young boy with my grandma and teaching her about the salmon. It was a really fun experience for me as a kid.
Is it a safe place for them to come back to every year?
Yeah, it's safe.
And what do they do when they come back?
So the salmon lays eggs in the creek. Those eggs hatch. When they get old, they swim out into the ocean. Then the salmon that swam out into the ocean came back, died, and laid other eggs.
Do they come back to this very creek?
Yep.
Really? How do they know, I wonder?
Oh yeah, that's a question everybody's been asking actually. I think they just go back the same path.
I like that.
Living here has really shaped my perspective of stewardship and has made me appreciate it and made me want to be more involved with it. As I got older, I've been involved with a program called the Youth Environmental Stewardship Program, an opportunity for high school-aged kids to do stewardship projects like planting trees, beach cleanup. It's horrifying how much plastic ends up on these beaches. And pulling up invasive species like blackberries from the banks, which was immediately rewarding. So it's a great program for high school kids to get involved with the environment. The Marine Science Center, it's played a pretty important role in my life. Growing up, I spent a lot of time at the beaches around the Marine Science Center and in the exhibits, playing with the sea creatures, teaching me about the importance of the sea and conservation. When I saw they had opportunities to volunteer there, I started volunteering feeding fish in the exhibits. Hey, good to see you. Sure.
River was a great volunteer. He would come in once a week and help me prepare the diets and then feed all the animals in the exhibit. And that involves a lot of observation of the animals, getting to know individually kind of what their place in the ecosystem is, because you have to know what they eat, who wants to eat them.
Each of the creatures I worked with, they were all unique and different, and I think that was something I'd never really thought about before. Just like a whole clam. When you come to view these animals as individuals, it's much harder to ignore issues like ocean acidification and climate change. So I think it's really important for young people to be involved in this kind of stewardship work because we're the ones that are going to have to continue doing it for the rest of our lifetimes, really, if we want this planet to be somewhere that we can continue to thrive on in the centuries to come. Allie's incredible. She's always positive and always excited about what she's doing, and I think that's rare to find somebody who takes so much joy and inspiration in the work that they do.
I'm from a sailing family. I grew up exploring the Puget Sound and the Salish Sea. So as a kid, I really loved the marine environment, and so I was very positive that I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to find a career that met my conservation ideals, but also made me be in the place that I enjoy being all the time.
What do the urchins like to eat?
Seaweed.
When I had my son, I gave a lot more thought to what sort of environment and community do I want him to be brought up in. And Port Townsend just kind of came out as one of those communities. It's just a really nice place to raise a child.
A lot of ocean feast.
As aquarist, I'm mainly responsible for invertebrates, fishes, making sure that the tanks are running and deciding which animals we have in them. The abalones, they're one of the animals that we can have a very direct conservation effect on. Because there are too few abalone in the wild, but good habitat for them, we can raise abalone and release them and put them out there, and that's something that we can be a part of. It's a nice way of bringing up an issue, overfishing, while putting a positive spin on it.
Oh, do the fish come and eat the food?
Yeah.
Where are they eating?
Yeah, there.
The more emotional ties and a greater understanding of it that people have, the more they're gonna care about it.
Looks like it's catching little pieces of food with its claws and then eating.
One of the important things is that we not overwhelm people with the doom and the gloom of what's happening to our world and our oceans, but to focus on what we can in fact do about it.
I'm rowing 2,400 miles across the Pacific Ocean from Monterey, California to Honolulu, Hawaii, to motivate action on climate change and plastic pollution. Fewer people have rowed across the Pacific than have gone to the moon. It's going to be a big challenge.
Why am I doing this? It begins right here in Port Townsend. When I was 12 years old, I met an orca named Hope. Actually, I met her bones. She lived in our waterways and she died on the shores of Dungeness Spit. Tests showed that Hope had some of the highest PCB and DDT levels ever measured in orcas. For 3 years, I spent my days articulating her massive bones. I made casts of orca teeth, slid vertebrae into place, and smoothed silicone to make it look like cartilage. I talked about bones, thought about bones, and even smelled like bones. When I began the project, I was merely a curious kid working in a community of adult volunteers. When the project was complete, I had transformed into a skilled skeleton articulator and a scientist seeking to understand the hazards, chemicals, and pollutants play in our lives and fill the waterways.
Articulating Hope's skeleton was an amazing opportunity. Now I'm pursuing my PhD at Stanford. My research is in glaciology. I'm studying the Antarctic ice sheet. 70% of the fresh water on Earth is locked up in the Antarctic ice sheet. The amount of water locked up could contribute hugely to sea level rise.
After almost a week of rowing out into the Pacific, one of my crewmates suffered a medical emergency. Due to the conditions, we had been dealing with huge waves, really strong winds. We had had a storm for 2 days that kept us on the parachute anchor. And so having this suddenly, all of these dreams shattered was really, really, really hard. I feel like that day that I was taken off the boat, I left my heart out in the boat. It's out of your control what happens when a bad thing happens, but what's not out of your control is what you do next. We still have a lot to fight for, and we still need to win this race against climate change.